They thought she was powerless. For 28 years, she smiled, stayed quiet, and never asked for anything. Then one morning, they made a decision that changed all of their lives, because the one person everyone overlooked was the only person in the room who wasn't afraid of what was about to happen.
Some people spend decades caring for a family that is not their own, sacrificing birthdays, sleep, and sometimes their own dreams. But what happens when the people they gave everything to decides they are no longer needed? That's exactly what happened to Linda in today's story.
She had given them 28 years of her life, and they gave her a trash bag and told her to leave. Linda Collins was not a woman who talked much about herself. She was the kind of person who showed up early, stayed late, and never once asked for a thank you. For nearly 3 decades, she worked inside the Cox family home in Short Hills, New Jersey, one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in the entire state. She cooked their meals, she raised their children, she sat by their bedside when they were sick. And when Harry Cox and his wife Megan were too old to get up the stairs on their own, it was Linda who helped them, one slow step at a time, every single night. She was not just a maid, she was the heartbeat of that house. Harry Cox had built his fortune in commercial real estate. The man owned buildings across 3 states. His wife Megan was elegant, sharp, and deeply private. Together, they had 2 adult children, Eric Cox and Carolyn Cox, who had grown up in that same house with Linda watching over them. She had packed their school lunches. She had cleaned up after their parties. She had even held Carolyn when she cried over her first heartbreak at 17. But that was then. Harry died first, in the fall. Megan followed him just 4 months later, in January. The doctors said it was heart failure. But Linda knew the truth. Megan had simply stopped wanting to stay. The 2 of them had been married for 51 years. When Harry left, he took a piece of Megan with him that no doctor could ever fix. The house went quiet after that, the kind of quiet that sits on your chest. Linda stayed on, as she always had, keeping things in order. She watered the plants, she kept the kitchen clean, she made sure the house didn't fall apart while the family sorted through their grief, or what she believed was their grief. She found out quickly that it was something else entirely. 3 weeks after Megan's funeral, Eric showed up at the house. He did not knock. He used the key he had taken from the estate lawyer's office and walked straight through the front door like he owned the place, which, in his mind, he already did. Linda was in the kitchen when she heard the footsteps. "Eric," she said, turning around, "I didn't know you were coming." He didn't smile. He didn't even look at her properly. He just glanced around the kitchen with that particular look wealthy people get when they are calculating what something is worth. "Linda," he said, "I need you to start packing your things." She stood very still. "I'm sorry." "You heard me," Eric said. "We're listing the house. You've got 2 weeks. 2 weeks. After 28 years, they were giving her 2 weeks. Linda didn't cry in front of Eric. She had too much dignity for that. She nodded slowly, said nothing, and waited until his car pulled out of the driveway before she sat down at the kitchen table and let herself feel the full weight of what had just happened. She was 61 years old. She had no family home to go back to. Her small apartment from before the Cox job had been given up years ago. For nearly 3 decades, the Cox residence had been her home too, not on paper of course, but in every way that actually mattered. She knew where every creak in the floor was. She knew which window let in the morning light first. She knew that Megan kept a small photo of her own mother tucked inside the Bible on the nightstand, and that Harry always left a glass of water on the left side of his desk before bed. She knew things about that family that even Eric and Carolyn didn't know. That was the strange and painful truth of being invisible to people who should have seen you clearly. Carolyn arrived 2 days later. Linda had hoped, maybe foolishly, that Carolyn would be different. After all, Linda had been kinder to Carolyn growing up than Carolyn's own mother sometimes had been. There is a bond that forms between a child and the person who actually shows up for them day after day. But Carolyn walked in wearing a sharp blazer and an expression that matched her brother's perfectly. "We've already spoken to the estate lawyer," Carolyn said, before Linda could even offer her coffee. "There's nothing in the will that covers your continued stay here." "I know that," Linda said quietly. "So you understand then? You'll be gone by the 15th? Linda looked at this woman, this girl she had once rocked to sleep after nightmares, and felt something settle inside her chest. Not anger, something quieter than anger. Something that felt almost like knowing. "I'll be here until I'm told otherwise," Linda said. Carolyn frowned. "We just told you otherwise." "You did," Linda agreed. "But I think there's someone else who may need to say so first." Carolyn stared at her. "What does that mean?" Linda said nothing more. She simply picked up her dish towel and went back to the kitchen. That evening, Linda made one phone call. She called a man named Anthony Hill. Anthony was a lawyer, not the estate lawyer who worked for the Cox family, but a different kind of lawyer entirely. One that Linda had been referred to, quietly, by Megan Cox herself, almost 2 years before Megan died. "It's time," Linda told him. "They are asking me to leave." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'll be there Thursday morning," Anthony said. "Don't sign anything. Don't move a single box." Thursday came with grey skies and cold air. Eric and Carolyn had both made a point of being at the house by 9 o'clock. They had brought a realtor with them, a tall man with a folder full of listing papers, and they were already walking through the downstairs rooms, speaking in low voices about what to renovate and what to leave, when the doorbell rang. Linda answered it. Anthony Hill was a calm man. He was in his late 50s, dressed in a dark coat, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it had seen 100 difficult rooms exactly like this one. He gave Linda a small nod. She stepped back and let him inside. "Who are you?" Eric called from the sitting room. Anthony walked in unhurried, set his briefcase on the dining table, and introduced himself. "My name is Anthony Hill. I'm an attorney. I represent an arrangement that was put in place by Harry and Megan Cox before their deaths. I'm here today because it has become relevant." Carolyn crossed her arms. "What arrangement? Everything was handled through the estate." "Not everything," Anthony said. He opened the briefcase and removed a sealed document. It was notarized. It had both Harry and Megan's signatures on it, witnessed and dated nearly 2 years prior. "What is that?" Eric said. "It's a life estate deed," Anthony said, "signed by both your parents and witnessed by 2 independent parties. It grants Linda Collins the legal right to occupy this property for the remainder of her natural life." The room went completely silent. The realtor shifted uncomfortably near the window. Carolyn spoke first. Her voice came out thin. "That's not possible." "I'm afraid it is," Anthony said. "Your parents executed this deed 22 months ago. It was filed with the county clerk's office in Union County. It is fully legal and fully binding." Eric looked at Linda. His face had changed entirely. The confidence was gone. In its place was something raw and unsteady. "You knew about this," he said. It wasn't a question. "Your mother told me," Linda said simply, "about a year before she passed. And you didn't say anything. You didn't ask." Carolyn turned away and pressed her fingers to her mouth. The realtor quietly gathered his papers and excused himself from the room. Nobody stopped him. Anthony placed the document on the table and slid it toward Eric. "You're welcome to have your own legal team review it," he said, "but I'd advise you to save your time. Your parents were very thorough." Eric picked up the document with hands that weren't entirely steady. He read it once, then he read it again. Then he set it down and stared at the wall for a long moment, like a man trying to find a door that wasn't there. "Why?" Carolyn finally said. She was looking at Linda now, and for the first time that week, she actually looked like the girl Linda had known. Confused, a little lost. Why would they do this without telling us? Linda sat down at the dining table, the same table she had set for holiday dinners for 28 years, and folded her hands in front of her. I can't speak for your parents, she said, but I'll tell you what I know. Your father came to me about 3 years ago. He was having one of his bad nights. He sat right here at this table and he said, Linda, when I go, I don't want you left with nothing. I told him I didn't need anything. He said that wasn't the point. She paused. Your mother was the one who pushed for the legal document. She said she didn't trust that things would be handled right after they were both gone. She said she wanted to make sure something was in writing. Carolyn sat down slowly across from Linda. Eric stayed standing, but the fight had gone out of him. She never mentioned it, Carolyn said quietly. Not once. She mentioned a lot of things she never said out loud, Linda replied. That was your mother's way. The room was still for a moment. Outside, the wind moved through the bare trees in the yard. The same trees Linda had watched grow from small plantings to towering things over 3 decades. Eric rubbed his face with both hands. So what does this mean practically for the house? Anthony answered from the corner where he had been standing quietly. It means the property cannot be sold, leased or transferred while Miss Collins is living without her written consent. The deed does not give her ownership. It gives her the right to stay. Forever, Eric said. For the rest of her life, Anthony confirmed. After which, the property reverts fully to the estate and to the two of you as heirs. Eric looked at Linda one more time. She didn't look away. I never wanted your house, she said. I just wanted a home. Eric picked up his jacket from the chair where he had draped it. He said nothing. He walked to the front door, opened it, and left. Carolyn stayed a moment longer. She looked around the dining room, the curtains, the cabinet, the small vase of fresh flowers Linda had put on the sideboard that morning out of pure habit. She really loved you, Carolyn said. It came out like something that had been sitting in her throat for a long time. Linda nodded. I know, I loved her too. Carolyn stood. She gathered her coat and her bag. At the door, she turned back one last time. I'm sorry, Linda, she said, for how this went. Linda looked at her steadily. I know that too. The door closed. The house settled back into its familiar quiet. Linda sat at the table alone for a while, her hands still folded in front of her. Then she got up, went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. Some things, after all, do not change.
Sometimes the people who do the most for us are the ones we appreciate the least until it's too late. Linda never asked for recognition. She just asked for a place to belong. And in the end, she had earned it. If this story reminded you that kindness, loyalty, and gratitude always matter, I would love to hear your thoughts. What would you have done if you were in Linda's position? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful story. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.